Welcome back to my channel, guys. I am so happy because I made it to Denmark. Okay, for the first time in my life, I had the honor to spend the last 3 to 4 days here in this beautiful country, and all because of these two guys, the audio group Denmark, Lars and Michael. By now, they should not be unknown personalities in the industry. Today, I want to pick their brain. I want to ask them questions, really strong questions, because I think we owe more transparency to the industry, and they are all in line with me. They all are 100% on board, and so we're going to make this one of the most interesting interviews that I have ever conducted. So, are you guys ready? Let's get started. Lars,
hey gang.
A pleasure having you on my channel. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and visit your house where all the magic happens here for your brands. And it's such an honor and a pleasure to see your beautiful country as well. The magnificent food. These guys are amazing hosts, okay? I gotta tell you, okay, they have been, I felt like a royalty here. Along with my wife, we've had an amazing time. So I want to first and foremost thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity to visit you and to really enjoy great things, great food here in Denmark. The beautiful weather, which I am going to miss dearly, but most importantly, the people of Denmark and how welcoming they have been of me and everyone else who has joined this trip. Today, though, I want to ask you questions that I think are important for the audience, and I think they're important for your brand as well. Questions that I am going...
So essentially now you're with the good cop, now the bad cop.
I'm going to be the bad cop, that's correct. Very much so. And I think that, sometimes a little bad is great, but this is, in my opinion, something that has been long overdue, things that need to be asked. And I think that these guys are the perfect example of what transparency, which is what ultimately both of them work for, actually. Transparency, neutrality, clarity, and all of that. I have had a lot of lessons. I am leaving with so much knowledge, by the way, because of you two. But that said, okay, I want to start asking you some questions, and either one of you can answer, okay? One of the questions is, what do you feel makes Borresen speakers special? Can you talk about your philosophy as a whole when it comes to Borresen?
I think where we stand apart from most speaker manufacturers is that we make everything. We make the drivers, we design the drivers, we build the drivers. We design the crossovers, we build the crossovers, we design the cabinets, we have the cabinets built for us. So I think I don't think a Ferrari would be a Ferrari without a Ferrari engine. So
Agreed.
They build the engines for the car. We build the speaker drivers for our speakers. And by doing that, we gain the knowledge of what is actually important for a speaker driver. And I have been involved in speaker manufacturing for 20 odd years, something like that.
Long time.
22 years,
yeah.
I think, actually. And have had that interest for many years. But building drivers is where the biggest difference are made. And you heard today speakers where frequency response, tonality is roughly the same, but the impression and depth and recognition of what goes on in the recording are vastly different over that range of things. So I think that's what sets us apart, is that we have full control of everything in the process.
That's interesting because I have seen that firsthand, all, the controls that you have over every aspect of your speaker design, from crossovers to your point cabinet construction. What you were showing us, Lars, earlier, all the devices on the top that very few people believe in, okay, to control resonance on the chassis, right? Every single thing is thought of in here, which I really never expected to see. So everything you have shown at shows, I can say I have seen it here on a bench somewhere, getting worked on or tested and improved upon, if that's the case, right? If you're releasing something new. So that's interesting, and thank you for that response. Another question I have here is, Do you trade off between designing a speaker that gives you the most detail versus a speaker that allows you to listen for a long period of time? For instance, sometimes there are brands out there that are all about extreme detail, but sometimes that leads to short listening sessions, right? One of the biggest things that I have heard about firsthand with your speaker is the tweeter is magical, okay? And it gives you all the clarity and all the nuance, okay? But as a whole, I feel like the speakers allow me personally to sit in front of them for hours and yet not get fatigued, but I still have this detail that I enjoy.
I don't think there's a contradiction between detail and relaxed. I think what we see is if we improve upon our speaker driver, especially the mid-range driver, we have had the concept for the tweeter since 1998, something like that. Lars and I met in a hot dog stand around that time, starting doing, that was just when Sony released the Super Audio CD, so we needed a tweeter that could actually do from 20K to 50K. That's where this tweeter was born, for doing that as an add-on to existing speakers. But we had the tweeter, we know the concept is really, really strong and really, really good, as it has almost no mass. But it's very hard to create a mid-range that has the same qualities. So that is what we're chasing. We're chasing minute details in the mid-range driver to match the tweeter. So details are not from the tweeter, but how the upper end of the mid-range works in conjunction with the tweeter. And creating something that has very low noise in that area and low distortion in that area also create a relaxed sound and a better match to the tweeter. So the overall presentation becomes more relaxed while increasing the amount of details.
That's interesting.
Some confuse detail with resonance. So if you take some of the tweeters out there that are dome tweeters, especially breaking up all over the place, or AMT drivers, AMT tweeters, which are also full of resonance, they may sound at first instance very detailed and very bright and very clear, but trust me, they will give you listening fatigue.
Man, I have lived with a lot of those tweeters, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Cabinet design, something that is clearly the most obvious physical part of the system, the cabinet, right? It's the first thing we look at when we enter a room. Although we're talking, it's the entire system, of course, that creates one amazing listening experience. Most of us are first, and you and I, Lars, had this conversation. First thing we look at is the speakers when we walk into a room, right? Does the speakers sound amazing? The speakers sound phenomenal.
Yeah.
But we
or
never
they're sounding bad.
or they're sounding bad. That was horrible. I couldn't get out of there soon enough. But we never look at the rest, the equipment that comes behind. One of the things that I get a lot of great feedback on is the design of the cabinets, right? Why is your design a narrow cabinet mainly? Like every speaker I've seen come out of you, it's never been the typical conventional cabinet that's more like wider, deeper. They're very narrow and streamlined. What do you think are the advantages of such design?
When you have a wide cabinet, there's always something called a baffle step. Is that you put a driver on a surface, and the width of that surface decides how the frequency response is. So if you have a very wide one, the baffle step is at a quite low frequency, and at a higher frequency when you make the cabinet narrower. So the size of the cabinet makes it very easy to place that together where you want to roll off the driver at the same time. So instead of having something where you actually need to make a two-step crossover, now you can make a one-step crossover because it suits the width of the baffle. And we have also seen that narrower baffle has an easier time doing the disappearing act.
Okay.
And rounded edges. So if you have a very wide, then you have a baffle step that goes like this, and all of a sudden it fades off. And that is very hard to not have visible. So when you sit and listen, you see where the speaker is, or you hear where the speaker is. But this quite narrow, rounded baffle creates that illusion of disappearing.
And I've always heard that firsthand with any of the Borresen models, whether it be the X1, the baby one, they all disappear and they throw a tremendous soundstage, which makes it I mean, if you close your eyes, you just don't believe that that's coming out of a small cabinet.
Exactly.
Right? It's been that way. As far as the selection of your cabinet, the materials to build your cabinets, what makes you go with what you select as opposed to, let's say, aluminum or granite or whatever other brands are doing, or composites of some sort? Why do you select what you choose for your cabinet
Now
construction?
you've been involved here a few days. You have heard what materials does.
Yep.
And if we challenge something like aluminium, how many music instruments have you seen made from aluminium?
That's a good question. None.
No,
You told me that, Lars.
Yeah.
You had an example. You said
No, there
someone.
was a guy at the Bristol show for a few years ago, and I claimed this. Have you ever heard any musical instrument made out of aluminum? And there was a guy in the front said, yes, I have been playing a guitar where the neck and the body was in aluminum. And magnet microphone I knew very well because I had on a few Gibsons and a Fender or whatever. And I then asked the guy, how did it sound? It's the most terrible sounding guitar he have ever played in his whole life. I mean, there's no brass. It's a reason why it's called brass instruments. Mm-hmm. Brass sounds good. And a lot of these brass instruments are also, in silver versions or even gold versions.
Right.
So aluminum of different reasons is not our cup of tea, really. So we want to not to get rid of it, but we only use it where it doesn't hurt the
Sound,
performance.
the performance.
Aluminium has one good thing going for it. It's quite cheap. It's very easy to machine. It's very easy to give a beautiful surface treatment, and it's a very good heat conductor. So if you see big amplifiers made from aluminium, those are the reasons, not the sonic performance. Because the sonic performance I find from aluminium is, like Lars said, it has this edgy, brighty sound, and I think that taking aluminium out from our designs, from our baskets and the speakers, from our faceplates and the tweeters, taking that aluminium out and replacing with stainless steel or titanium is a really, really huge step forward. Again, it's something unmeasurable. It's just something that you need to understand and listen and to appreciate it. But I think you heard enough today with the cable demonstration. What does it really mean to have a plug of aluminium in contradiction to stainless steel or copper or titanium? It's totally different. It changes a lot.
I think this is the question that a lot of people have asked me to bring up, and you're the first ones that I'm going to ask this question to. A lot is, especially in the United States with American audiophiles, it's always frowned upon when a manufacturer heads off to China to build their cabinets, because the perception of the typical American audiophile, and I'd say a lot of people around the globe, not necessarily just Americans, is if it's made in China, it's cheap, they're cutting corners, they are about maximizing profits, and so it cannot be good. The quality control will suffer. We've heard it. And I know you and I were having a discussion about where your cabinets are built for your products. And you said, yeah, some of them are built in China, I believe the L1, X1. And then the other ones are in Indonesia, you said something like that,
Yeah,
right? So tell us a little bit about why.
Yeah, the why in that is that if you want to have something that has a high degree of manufacturing, that has a high degree of hand finishing, that requires a high degree of hand labor. And you need to go where hand labor is cheaper than in Europe or in the US in order to give something at high value to the client. And you can take all the political views on that, and that's fairly, and that's okay with me. I don't mind. But China has a tradition, if we talk about the L1 and the X1, to deliver a very, very high quality product for reasonably low cost. So if we did not look there for a cabinet, we would not have the ability to sell an X-ray.
Makes sense.
For the money
I agree.
So what we do is that we source so we can actually provide our clients with the best possible performance for the money. And I think that these questions are not fueled by the one that wants to buy it, but it's fueled by the competition that doesn't like to see where we are with the X3 in the market.
Oh no, there's no denying the fact that a lot of brands are taking note of your more affordable offerings now, right? You're getting down to, I believe, a $3,000 speaker right now is the most affordable pair of speakers you offer, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so that's never been done by a lot of audiophile brands. I've never seen that done. Not only that, forget about the price point, it's the performance at that particular price point that is the most shocking thing I have seen. You mentioned to me on a previous conversation off camera that you had even gone to Poland to figure out if they can build some of the cabinets for you.
Yeah.
And their response was,
To that finish, to that degree of quality, no, we can't. Sorry. We have worked with Lithuania, with Poland.
But Michael is right. I think people in general are underestimating the quality of the job which they do in Asia. If you go to a machine shop in Denmark, they have a CNC machine which is 20 years old or 15 years old, 2-axle. I mean, in China and Indonesia, they have the latest CNC machinery, 5 or 6-axle machines. And if you see the fins we have on our X-ray, we couldn't have it made in Denmark. Right. Because we don't have that kind of quality cabinet manufacturer. We had that in former times, so we don't have it today.
it's also something that I think has to do with not only that, training the labor.
Also that.
Forget about just the investment when it comes to equipment, it's also training. And then you mentioned something about the local laws with pollution and everything else that goes into that, which a lot of countries don't even want you to bring and do certain types of fabrication because of all the potential damages to the environment. So that's another thing that I'm sure we're not even touching on. That has to be.
There's another story to this. There's another story that companies now U.S. is basically in a trade war with China, and they put in taxation of finished goods from China, but they did not put in taxations or toll barrier on unfinished products. That means that the U.S. companies making speakers are still using components from China, like we are using components from China. There's no difference in that. There's absolutely no difference between us and Magical. I mean, you can take a Magical driver and open it up and look at the components there. I think 3, 4, 5, 6 of them are made in China.
Yeah.
Not because they say, let's do business with China. Maybe they do business in Germany, but the German guys have it manufactured in China. And the reason they have that is because it's a huge investment to make the machinery that can make bobbins and voice coils. And you cannot do that outside. And the best manufacturer of that in the world, best quality, most equality, the quality is always the same, they deliver on time, is Puyon in China. And everybody uses that, whether it's Morel or it's Sears or it's Scanspeak or whatever. They use the same supplier because they're good.
Right.
Yeah, so that component is manufactured by the best in the world to manufacture that. And I think that we need to see sourcing as an international game rather than a political game.
We talked about cars as well.
We do talked about cars.
That's the same. I mean,
we definitely talked.
Because it's a Volvo doesn't mean necessarily it's a Volvo engine or whatever. It could be from Ford. It could be from, I know from my car, the turbos come from Mitsubishi. If it's a BMW, because they made the best turbos in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're driving a Japanese car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of it.
I remember you showing me the dust cap on one of the woofers, and you said, this I buy from a German supplier. But right now, I have no way of knowing that. For all I know, he's getting it made in China.
Yeah.
But I can't go direct to the Chinese supplier because, number one, I don't have the expertise to do the quality controls necessary to make sure the product I'm getting is what I'm asking for. And that's the job of that German supplier. That's what he does. That's what he's good at. So I never thought about it like that. My whole thinking was, why do you go to the German suppliers if we know, let's say they're getting it in China, why not just go straight to them, bypass them, and cut costs even more? And you said, because I don't want to get embarked on testing all that. That's what he does for a living. That's what expertise.
He can also have special technology.
Right.
What have it manufactured in Vietnam or whatever he's have it manufactured.
Another question that has been brought up to my attention, and I am guilty, and I wanted to ask you this, I forgot about this last time. Why only the M series, except the M1? Okay, 'cause that's the only one that doesn't have it. Why is it only the M3, I believe M6, have biampable capabilities? We don't see on the rest of the products that you offer.
So the new C series coming out, the C3
Okay,
and the
will.
C2 will have biampable.
Beautiful.
also.
Okay, so great.
And the T3 and the T5,
They will have biampable.
they will have biampable
Awesome.
options.
That was
So there we have, it's a 2.5, our speakers are 2.5 way. That means essentially the bass is separate from the bass mid-range and the tweeter. So that's one input. That is for that, for the low frequency to the highest frequency of the full range speaker. And then the bass system is a separate.
So even the big boys behind me, the $500,000 M6s are a 2.5 way design.
They are 2.5 way design.
Okay, so everything you do, and your crossovers are what? First order, second order, what are your crossovers?
They are a little bit different. The M is a little bit different because they end up being roughly 1.5 order because they are a serious crossover. So they are sort of like not a 6 dB crossover, not a 12 dB crossover, somewhere in the middle. So it's like a progressive curve. So it's a first order when they meet, and then they cut off a little bit more. And a little bit more they cut off takes some of the breakups of the membrane away. It reduces noise a little bit. And that's the main difference you hear when we went from the T5 you listen to this, because the T5 is a first order crossover.
This is what I hear from other people, of course. Spades are the best contact you can make, period. There's more surface.
Yeah,
this is what you want to use on the
but they
back of
sound like
amplifiers.
shit.
So
At
tell
the
us
same
why,
time.
why do they sound like shit? Tell
I
us.
don't know if it's a material, it's a dimension, or what it is, but we find for sure that bananas are the best connection. The bananas we use are really, really good connection.
But they also have a wider surface
They
connection
have
than spade.
They have a big surface and it's a very good connection. But they sound better. There's no comparison. If you make a speaker wire, and we do, and we try it, and sometimes we even sell speaker cables with spades on. That's part of our business. We do that. But I honestly prefer the bananas a lot. And why make something complex when you can make it easy? I don't think that added complexity for the sake of flexibility is an excuse. You always go for the simple solution that sounds best. I mean, it's the same thing. We could have tone controls on our amplifier for flexibility and adaptation. We could have, we could even use balance cables, but it doesn't bring any performance benefits. So why do it? It adds complexity inside the amplifiers, extra circuits needed, balance to single-ended conversions, single-ended to balance conversions, and all of those things are detrimental to performance. So we don't put it in. And if you look at the old purists like Peter Quattro and his amplifiers, are they balanced? Do you see balanced cable on an Oganko amplifier? No, you don't. There's a reason. Simplicity. Simple circuit sounds the best, so why add complexity when it's not needed?